Hi, Sophie here, doing a bit of a throwback with this video, sort of a talking in real time as I make art kind of video. I haven't done them in a while. I also got a comment from someone saying they'd be interested in seeing kind of my process planning out a piece. They said I seemed very organized and well planned out. Don't know if that's true, but I could definitely share my process planning because for this piece, not that it's complex, but I do have specific things that I want to hit, specifically what I want to use the geometry nodes for that I've not tried yet. And I'm actually not sure if this is gonna work, my geometry nodes plan, because I've just thought it up here. And so we're gonna be putting it into practice today and seeing if it works. But let me start by walking you through what I have planned for this piece. So I've gotten as far as setting up the pixel canvas, which I'll talk about in another video. My goal for this piece is to have it be a 2D artwork, but I want to incorporate 3D geometry nodes elements. And so the final image is going to be flat, but the fact that I will have 3D objects, I think it's going to be really cool to be able to like rotate them, get different angles on these 3D objects, move them around in 2D, 3D space. And it's just going to be a way of like preparing the background, because when I was thinking about the background for this piece, I was just thinking of like a flat color or a gradient of color. And so this is going to allow me to fill out the piece with 3D objects. They're going to be flat in the final artwork, but I think it's going to be really cool to plan my piece by positioning them in 3D space. And I want to use geometry nodes because I just want to try something different and keep learning about this tool. When coming to the question of like where my ideas, my inspiration comes from, I do try and watch like videos of other artists. My favorite is project breakdowns over like tutorials necessarily. So I do really enjoy watching project breakdowns. And not necessarily watching them with like the intention of implementing exactly what they've talked about, more so to learn about what is possible, how other artists are using Blender and grease pencil geometry nodes, and then kind of letting all of those ideas like percolate in my brain, and then slowly, as I think about my own artworks, I can kind of call back to those things that I've seen before and kind of like combine the different ideas, concepts, inspirations that I've seen into a new piece and try something new from those. So one thing that came to mind as an inspiration was this project breakdown by this grease pencil artist, Kevin. I really want to, basically these monstera leaves, I want to recreate using geometry nodes. So that's my inspiration for this part of the piece. I basically just want to create monstera leaves with geometry nodes that can exist in 3D space and that I can move and rotate around my scene, around my character, to mostly just fill out the background. So this geometry node shape is going to be a combination of 3 different tutorials slash like methods that I've seen online. So this geometry nodes tutorial was like really inspiring to me. I'm really amazed with how this artist uses geometry nodes to go from curves to meshes. And so that's the process, the technique that I'll be copying from their video. I have tested out before for this idea to create the background of this room. It is basically a curve. It's a single curve that with their node setup becomes essentially a leaf shape. And so that is what I'm going to be using to create the initial leaf shape. So this is a curve to mesh node setup. So that is going to be pretty much following this tutorial. So then once we have the leaf shape, I am going to want to cut into it. And this was the big question. This is like honestly something I've been like grappling with for a while and trying to find out ways to do. And I was trying to think like, is there ways to go from a mesh and to kind of do like this to the edge geometry? I remember something that I tried looking into is you see a lot of like cog tutorials. Well, I have anyways. And so I was like, oh cool, this seems kind of like what I want. Would this work? But it's not quite the same because this tends to start from a star shape, like a star curve, and then to use a mesh to like minimize the edges. And so I didn't quite see how that would be transferable to what I want, because I really want to start from, like, I don't want to start from a star shape and then turn those into smoother edges, which are the only like cog tutorials that I've seen. I really want to start from a circular smooth edge and go from that to eating into the mesh shape. So ultimately, I think the only way I know of how to do that is going to be with the mesh Boolean node. So this too is something that I've tried before. Basically for this piece, if you remember from this video, to make the plane that the horse, like that I wanted the waves to come out of, I wanted the waves to only come out from the outside edges of a plane. So I used this plane, transformed it a little bit, and then added in this cylinder, which when both are plugged into a mesh Boolean node, results in one of these objects eating away the other object. So this sort of mesh setup here, for simplicity, I don't need necessarily these. So yeah, this is the mesh setup that I will be using. And so this initial leaf shape is what's going to be the top part of the Boolean, the thing being cut into. But then in order to create the bottom part of the Boolean, the thing doing the cutting, I also wanted to use procedural geometry nodes for that. And so onto my leaf shape, I'm imagining if I could instance something like a sphere around the edges, and then maybe I could transform the spheres, like increase their scale so that they would look something like this, which looks silly now, but once you apply it with the mesh Boolean, would result in, you know, a shape like this. Potentially also kind of like a curve being instanced to all of these points. A curve that I could give like a thickness to, similar to the leaf. That could result in potentially more of a this kind of look as I'm imagining it. So a bit more like angular potentially, these cuts, rather than these ones being more circular if I were to start from a sphere. This is the part where I really don't know how it's gonna look, and like the most experimentation is gonna have to happen. A big question, especially for me, is going to be how, like, would I be able to control the direction of these for the leaves? Because ideally for a leaf, I wouldn't want cuts necessarily eating into it straight on, although if I don't find a solution for that and I just have to have straight on cuts, I'm still going to consider that a win. But ideally, I would like them to have some angle towards like the stem, which I definitely see a way for doing for one side, kind of like with a rotation transformation node. But then it's I'm imagining it would also rotate the other side not symmetrically. Like it would rotate all of these instances in the same direction, the rotation, if I modified it. And I would want it to go, I would want them to be symmetrical. So that potentially wouldn't work. This is one of the parts where I have plans, like I'm confident that I can at least get to this part and the result will look decent. It's just going to be a question of like how much can I modify it to make it closer and closer to my vision. That is going to be the thing that I'll have to see. But in order to do this, I am planning on using a tutorial from the master of geometry nodes themselves, Arendelle. this hour-long video, which I've still not entirely gone through because I get too excited and I stop watching tutorials because like I just want to try things. I'm imagining this could come in handy for being a bit more selective about where the empties show up. I might potentially have more geometry along my ends than I want the instances to show up. And so they have different methods for selecting only a certain number of points on a mesh. So I think I'm likely going to go back to this tutorial. I'm kind of expecting that. Specifically the section that I used, I remember, again, going back to this piece, which was very much like just a experimentation piece. But I used this kind of logic selecting for getting different like overlapping shapes of pipes. So that was kind of this node setup. Specifically like these two, in order to, it basically allowed me to, to kind of select different points along these curves. So I do think that will probably come in handy. So yeah, it's really these two nodes, and then that you could plug into the selection. In this case, it's something different, but if you were to use an instance on points node, then there's a selection box in that you could plug it into. So yeah, then once I have these leaves created, my plan is to kind of just combine them with this artwork and to like have them, you know, framing around, overlapping. Also in the background, some nice leaves. Potentially I could also explore some different leaf shapes. Pretty much just to add something to the background to like give me something new to experiment with and try for this piece. I did not originally film an outro, so thank you for watching. If this sort of casual, chatty video interests you, I post a lot of these sorts of videos over on my Patreon. Sometimes, like with this video, they make their way over to my YouTube in a more edited down format usually. Though a lot of times they just stay on Patreon, like part 2, where I do put this plan into action. You can see me putting it into action, and it is quite messy. But no matter what, I will see you soon for part 3, comparing plan to final artwork, so stay tuned for that. And thank you for your support. However it looks, I really appreciate it. Even just watching this video helps me out a lot. There will be more stuff linked below if you'd like to see more of what I do, but thank you so much for being here.